Thor Ragnarok is directed by Taika Waititi. This is an action, adventure, comedy, fantasy, science fiction superhero movie. This movie is part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This movie stars Chris Hemsworth as Thor, Tom Hiddleston as Loki, Idris Elba as Heimdall, Mark Ruffalo as Dr. Bruce Banner, Hulk, Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie, Taika Waititi as Korg, Kate Blanchett as Hela, Anthony Hopkins as Odin, Jeff Goldblum as Grand Master, and Benedict Cumberbatch as Dr. Stephen Strange. This movie is rated PG-13 for intense sequences of sci-fi violence and action and brief suggestive material. This movie would be okay for anyone 15 years of age and older. The movie has a runtime of 2 hours and 10 minutes. Thor Ragnarok was released in theaters in the United States on Friday, November 3rd, 2017. 2 years after the Battle of Sokovia with his allies the Avengers, Thor leaves Earth in search of more of the Infinity Stones. At the start of this movie, we the audience find Thor imprisoned by the fire demon Surtur, who reveals that Thor's father Odin is no longer on Asgard. Surtur explains that the realm will soon be destroyed by the prophesied Ragnarok once he reunites his crown in the eternal flame that burns in Odin's vault.
Thor, son of Odin.
Surtur, son of a bitch, you're still alive. I thought my father killed you, like 500,000 years ago.
I cannot die, not until I fulfill my destiny and lay waste to your home.
Thor frees himself and defeats Surtur and takes his crown, believing that he's prevented Ragnarok. Thor returns home to Asgard to find Heimdall is gone and his estranged brother Loki is posing as Odin. After exposing Loki, Thor forces him to help find their father. They both go to Earth and encounter Dr. Stephen Strange.
Thor Odinson. God of Thunder. You can put down the umbrella.
Earth has wizards now.
It is there that Doctor Strange gives them directions to Odin. They locate Odin in Norway, and Odin explains that he is dying, and that Ragnarok is imminent despite Thor's efforts to prevent it, and his passing will free his firstborn child Hela from a prison she was sealed in long ago. Hela was the leader of Asgard's armies, conquering the Nine Realms with Odin, but he imprisoned her and wrote her out of their history after fearing she'd become too ambitious and powerful. Odin dies as Thor and Loki look on, and Hela appears, destroying Thor's hammer, Mjolnir. She pursues the two as they attempt to flee through the Bifrost Rainbow Bridge back to Asgard, and she forces them both out into space. Arriving on Asgard, she defeats its army and kills the Warriors Three. She then resurrects the ancient dead who once fought with her, including her giant wolf dog, Fenris, and appoints the Asgardian Scourge as her executioner. Hela plans to use the Bifrost to expand Asgard's empire, but Heimdall sneaks in and takes the sword that controls the Bifrost, and he begins hiding other Asgardians in the mountains. Thor crash lands on Sakaar, a garbage planet surrounded by wormholes. A slave trader designated Scrapper 142 subdues Thor with an obedience disc and sells him as a gladiator to Sakaar's ruler, the Grand Master, with whom Loki has already made friends with. Thor recognizes 142 as a Valkyrie, one of the legendary forces of female warriors. Thor is forced to compete in the Grandmaster's Contest of Champions, facing his old friend and ally, the Incredible Hulk, Dr. Bruce Banner. During the battle, they both exchange tons of blows. Thor then gets the upper hand, but the Grandmaster sabotages the fight to ensure Hulk's victory. Still enslaved after the fight, Thor attempts to convince Hulk and 142 to help him save Asgard, but neither are willing. He soon manages to escape the palace and finds the old Avengers Quinjet that brought the Hulk to Sakaar. Hulk follows Thor into the Quinjet, where a recording of Black Widow Natasha Romanoff comes on and causes the Hulk to transform back into Bruce Banner for the first time since Sokovia. The Grandmaster orders 142 and Loki to find Thor and Hulk, but they both get into a fight and Loki forces her to relive the deaths of her Valkyrie companions at the hands of Hela. Deciding to help Thor, she takes Loki captive. Unwilling to be left behind, Loki provides the group with the means to steal one of the Grandmaster's ships. They then liberate the other gladiators who, incited by two aliens named Couric and Meek, stage a revolution. Loki again attempts to betray his brother, but Thor anticipates this and incapacitates him, leaving him behind where Couric and Meek and the gladiators soon find him. Thor, Banner, and 142 escape through a wormhole called the Devil's Anus back to Asgard, where Hela's forces attack Heimdall and the remaining Asgardians in pursuit of the sword that controls the Bifrost. Bruce Banner transforms into the Hulk once again, defeating Fenris, while Thor and 142 fight Hela and her warriors. Loki and the gladiators arrive to rescue the citizens, and a repentant Scourge sacrifices himself to enable their escape. Thor, facing Hela, loses his right eye and then has a vision of Odin that helps him realize only Ragnarok can stop her. He sends Loki to retrieve Surtur's crown and place it in the eternal flame. Surtur is reborn and destroys Asgard, killing Hela as the refugees flee aboard the Grandmaster's big spaceship. Thor, now officially king of Asgard, reconciles with Loki and decides to take his people to Earth. In a mid-credit scene, they are then intercepted by a large spacecraft which just happens to be Thanos' ship. In a post-credit scene, the overthrown Grandmaster is confronted by his former subjects. So that is the summary synopsis of the film. Now, here are my negatives. I did not like how they tore Thor down in this movie and made him lose his father, his hammer, his hair, and his eye. I mean, he's already been through a lot, and now all of this? There was no need for any of that, even though they were getting him ready for Infinity War and Endgame. Then there were the practical CGI sets that were used. Some of the sets in this movie looked like shit, and they looked like they were made out of cheap wood or styrofoam. The worst set was the Bifrost Rainbow Bridge. In the first two movies, it was amazing looking and such an awe-inspiring spectacle to look at. In this movie, the Rainbow Bridge just looks like a piece of old weathered wood with colors running through it. I mean, it just looked so shitty. I expect way more from a Marvel Cinematic Universe film. Those are all my negatives. Here are my positives. The story is great, and it's a very interesting story and easy to follow and comprehend. The arc that Thor goes throughout the entire movie, and how we see characters like Heimdall, Loki, Valkyrie, Korg, and Surge go through as well. I mean, it's very character-centered, which is very good. I really liked that it really focused on the characters. The actors are great in this film. This Thor movie has an A-list all-star cast that really bring their acting skills to the movie. They really make these characters very three-dimensional, and they make it so we care about everyone. This is actually the first movie that actress Natalie Portman is not in, and that was a welcomed treat. The characters in the film, we have Thor, who goes through a complete 360 character arc, not just emotionally, but physically as well. Loki, who has been impersonating Odin as King of Asgard since the ending of Thor the Dark World. He is still the Loki we all know and love, but we see him and how much he really cares for Thor, even though he is a constant headache for Thor, but we see how much he cares about his brother. Heimdall, Valkyrie, and Hulk, as well as Asgard and its people. Valkyrie we meet for the first time in this movie, and she is a scrapper and is a habitual drinker who is drinking to forget her past, but eventually she decides to help Thor, and she also decides to confront her past as well. Dr. Bruce Banner, the Hulk, we learn about where he is and what he's been doing since we last saw him in Avengers Age of Ultron. We see that he and Thor get to have a rematch of their fight from Avengers, and this time it is set in front of a huge stage in a packed arena. He agrees to help Thor go back to Asgard and stop his sister Hela. Then there's Korg. He is a rock monster, and he's a fighter in the Tournament of Champions on Sakaar. We see that he and his fighting buddy Meek become good friends with Thor, and he is the comic relief of the film. Then there's Hela, who is Loki and Thor's older sister and Odin's firstborn. After Odin's death, she is released from the hell prison he trapped her in, and she's hell-bent on revenge after what Odin did to her. She is one of the meanest and cruelest and baddest bad guys in the MCU. Scourge was an Asgardian warrior who, after Heimdall was declared a fugitive of Asgard and then went on the run, Scourge was tasked with guarding and activating the Bifrost, and later, when Hela returns to Asgard, becomes her right-hand man and executioner. But at the end of the movie, we see him have a change of heart. Heimdall in this movie becomes a fugitive after Loki takes over and impersonates Odin. We see how resourceful Heimdall is, especially once Hela arrives, and how he cares about the people of Asgard and how he helps take care of them. Plus, we see more of him being a warrior and how much of an awesome badass he really is. Then there's Grand Master. He is like the king of Sakaar and founder of the Tournament of Champions. He's kind of an idiot, but he's really funny. But he loves his champion, the Hulk, and he gets overthrown during the Revolution. Anthony Hopkins, who plays Odin, who was sent to Earth to live in exile by Loki after the events of Thor the Dark World, he reveals startling news to Thor and Loki after they find him on Earth. Odin ends up dying on Earth with both his sons by his side. The special effects used in this film were mainly CGI effects for characters, creatures, villains, locations, and things such as lightning strikes and laser beams from shooting weapons. From my research on the film, I didn't see or read where they used any practical effects at all. Overall, the effects do look really good and very clean, but I wish they would have used or done some things practically and really made the Rainbow Bridge look like what it's supposed to look like. For that one, they really messed up. But everything else looked pretty good. It's just the Rainbow Bridge looked like shit. The sets and set pieces in the film are really well done and seem huge, especially Sakaar, the arena, and the Devil's Anus wormhole. Asgard is great as well, and we see even more of Asgard than we did in the first two movies. We see more of the city and more of the countryside and the mountains, and we see the future of where New Asgard is going to be. And plus, we go to the Sanctum Sanctorum in New York City, where Dr. Stephen Strange helps Thor locate Odin. The film was shot on a few built sets on sound stages. It was also shot on actual locations in Atlanta, Georgia, USA, and Queensland, Australia. This film has a very colorful and kind of shiny, sleek look at times, and then it looks gritty at times. The film uses both warm and cool colors, and it's very colorful on Sakaar, and it uses a lot of reds, oranges, yellows, blacks, and some dark grays when Thor first encounters Surtur. The overall look of the film is really beautiful. The fight scenes in this film are really good and fun, except for the final battle in the throne room between Hela and Thor. That fight scene is an in-your-face fight with brutal, violent moves and deadly fighting styles. It is kind of graphic as well, especially when Thor loses his eye at the hands of Hela. The arena battle between Thor and Hulk on Sakaar was a great sequence, and it was a fight and rematch we had all been waiting for. It is a fun fight scene, but it was also at certain times a brutal fight. Thor actually gets to experience what Loki went through in Avengers during a confrontation with the Incredible Hulk.
I am a god, you dull creature, and I will not be bullied by that.
Puny god.
I'm just a huge fan of the sport.
Finally, there is the music used in Thor Ragnarok. Thor Ragnarok's score music was composed and conducted by Mark Mothersbaugh, and he did a really good job with this score. However, it's not the score from the first or second Thor movie. This movie has its own individual score music, and it uses things like techno, upbeat sounds, and sounds with like synthesizer in it. It was really interesting, but it was a fun score. At the same time, at the very end of the movie, we do hear some of the score and cues from the soundtrack from the first Thor movie that Patrick Doyle composed. It was a surprise to hear, but a welcome surprise. Then there's the song used in the film and in the film's advertising that really gives it something else, and that was Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin, which I really liked. Okay, those are all my positives. Now it's grading time. I'm going to give Thor Ragnarok a B-. Here are my final thoughts. I thought this movie was good. It was not great, it was just good. There were more disappointments in this film for me than there were in the other two movies. But this is still very much a fun and enjoyable film, and a great film to have in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. One thing about this film is at the end of the movie, it very much sets the stage for Avengers Infinity War, which when I first saw this movie got me all excited for what was to come in the future of the MCU. I do own this film on Blu-ray and DVD. If you've not seen it and like Thor, then you need to check it out. Okay, that's it for this video. I'm going to say thank you so much for watching. Good night. God bless. I love all of you, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.